I was the girl next door. Chloe Reed was the girl who fell from the sky. They say the girl next door never stands a chance against the one who comes out of nowhere. Not long after she transferred, someone saw them in the empty stairwell after school. They said that Jackson King, my Jax, the boy who bowed to no one, was standing there with his head down like a chastened puppy, listening to her lecture him. Later, when Chloe and I had a falling out, all it took was a quiet word from him. I don't want to see Aubrey Hale at this school again. My parents, terrified of jeopardizing their business with the King family, had me transferred by the end of the week. After that, I vanished from his world. I didn't dare even show my face where he might see it. But then on his birthday he showed up at my door, drenched by the rain, his face a wreck of misery and hurt. "Did you forget?" he asked, his voice cracking. "Did you forget it was my birthday? They say the girl who's been there forever can't compete with the girl who shows up out of the blue." I used to scoff at that. But then I sat in the school auditorium watching Jackson's eyes follow Chloe Reed as she danced across the stage, and I saw it. The unfiltered adoration. The love he couldn't hide. In that moment I believed it. And I finally believed the rumors, the ones about the untouchable Jax King, the king of Crestwood High, letting this new girl put him in his place in a deserted stairwell. The confession I'd held in my heart, the one I was always waiting for the right moment to share, would have to stay buried there forever. When the music ended, I applauded with the rest of the crowd, my hands moving mechanically as the girl on stage took a glittering bow. Jax stood up and headed for the wings, undoubtedly to find her. I stood up too and walked out of the auditorium. Outside the evening air was cool. I raised my hand, letting the little wooden star charm he gave me years ago dance in the breeze. "Aubrey, for you." I looked at the crudely carved star in his palm. "What is it?" 7-year-old Jax had been watching some soap opera with his aunt and had learned a new phrase. "It's a promise," he'd said, his cheeks pink. "You have to wear it. It means you have to like me best forever. And I'll always protect you, Aubrey." My eyes stung with the memory. I closed my fist around the charm. A kid's promise. It's not supposed to mean anything. But I'd let it mean everything. Jax King, the boy who broke rules and hearts with equal impunity, was the secret joy and the central truth of my entire youth. Chloe Reed had transferred in at the start of the semester. She was beautiful, a trained dancer, and her arrival was an event. The girls in my class immediately cast her in their imaginary high school drama. She was the perfect transfer student protagonist, the quiet, talented girl who catches the eye of the school's resident bad boy. The bad boy who would inevitably tame himself for her. A lot of guys tried to ask Chloe out. Someone even joked that the only one left was Jax. Jax, lounging at his desk, had stretched languidly and shot the guy a look of pure disdain. Her? Is that a joke? That's how untouchable he'd seemed. I never really believed the rumors about them because I hadn't seen it with my own eyes. Because he'd never said the words to me, never told me he was with someone else. But now I knew. It was time to pull back, to put a real, measurable distance between us. For years I'd always walked home with Jax. I can't remember exactly when it started, but recently he always had some excuse for me to go on ahead. He could have just told me the truth. I wouldn't have made a scene. I wouldn't have clung to him. After all, we were never really together in the first place. On Sunday evening we had study hall and homework was due. Jax was the kind of student who, when asked for his assignment, would just give the TA a blank look and say, "Didn't do it." He used to listen to me though. Everyone knew it. So whenever he'd pull that stunt, they'd come and complain to me. That's what happened tonight, except no one could even find him. He'd slipped out after the last bell, probably to find Chloe. "Aubrey, Jax didn't turn in his homework again and he's not in his seat. Can you just hand in what you have?" I said, offering a small, tight smile. "From now on, you don't need to tell me about his homework." My classmate just nodded, his expression confirmation that the rumors about Jax having a girlfriend must be true. My detached tone was all the proof he needed. When class resumed, I bent over my test prep book. Before Chloe, my plan was for Jax and me to go to Northwood University together. Now the plan was just for me to work my ass off and get into Northwood. For my own dream. Jax didn't come back for the entire period. The teacher on duty frowned from her desk at the front of the room and asked where he was. Every head in the classroom turned to look at me. I kept my eyes on my paper, refusing to acknowledge them. He finally reappeared during the second period, sliding into his seat without a word. A moment later, a classmate leaned over and told him the principal wanted to see him in his office. Jack seemed to snap out of a daze. As he walked past my desk, he paused for a fraction of a second. I didn't look up. I was wrestling with the final problem on a math worksheet, the kind where I could solve the first part but my brain would freeze on the second. After I finally figured it out, my desk mate Maya leaned over. "Hey, is everything okay with you and Jax?" she whispered. "Everything's fine," I said. "Really? Because you used to get more worked up than anyone when he skipped class or blew off his homework," she pointed out. I flinched. He was right. "That was then," I said, my voice flatter than I intended. "I'm not going to bother with his stuff anymore." "Oh," she said, her eyes wide as she put the pieces together. "So it's true? About him and Chloe Reed?" I looked down, saying nothing. The final bell rang and a few minutes later, Jax ambled back into the room. A folded piece of paper landed on my desk. I opened it. "Go home without me." I stared at the familiar scrawl, then calmly folded the note and tucked it away before returning to my work. The classroom was a chaotic swirl of noise and motion as everyone packed up. I took my time organizing my binder. Suddenly, a hush fell over the room. Maya gasped, and I followed her gaze to the doorway. Chloe Reed was standing there. She tilted her head, gave Jax a little come-hither crook of her finger and then turned and walked away. I couldn't stop myself from looking at Jax. A helpless, almost tender smile spread across his face as he grabbed his backpack and followed her out. The second he was gone, the classroom erupted. "Holy crap, so it's real. Wow. I always thought he and Aubrey were endgame. You know, the bad boy and the good girl. But I guess the bad boy and the dancer. That kind of fits better, you know? Don't be an ass. Does anyone else feel kind of bad for Aubrey? They've known each other their whole lives. See? The girl next door never wins." Maya was looking at me, her expression full of pity she was trying to hide. I slung my backpack over my shoulder. My heart felt like it was being squeezed in a vice, but I forced a smile. I would not cry. Not here. I couldn't let them see how much it hurt. If I did, I'd be the butt of their jokes for the rest of the year. "I'm fine," I told Maya, meeting her worried eyes. "Jax and I have only ever been friends. I'll see you tomorrow." "Hey. See you tomorrow. Get home safe." Once I was out of the noisy school building, I gripped the straps of my backpack, my knuckles white. I bit down on my lip hard. But the tears came anyway, hot and silent, blurring the streetlights. A heavy, aching pressure built in my chest. How could he just start liking someone else? Out of nowhere? My vision swam. In my ears I could hear a boy's voice, clear and cocky from a lifetime ago. "Don't worry, Aubrey. I can do anything. And I've got you. For life." "Aubrey, why didn't you wait for me this morning?" Jax had been late to school. He cornered me after first period, his tone laced with a playful grievance as he placed a carton of milk on my desk. My hand, busy scribbling vocabulary words, paused. I glanced at the milk. "I already had breakfast," I said. "And I'm not going to walk with you anymore. I'm getting to school earlier from now on." He slid into the empty seat beside me, looking genuinely confused. He propped his chin on his hand. "Did I do something to piss you off? We've always walked together," he asked. "It's different now." I set down my pen and took a deep breath, forcing a small smile. "You have a girlfriend, Jax. We need some distance." His expression froze for a second before realization dawned. "She won't care. She knows about you." "I care." I enunciated each word clearly. "I don't want to be the target when you two eventually have a fight about something. I don't want to be the problem." Aubrey. Jax King was not known for his patience. The fact that he'd even let the conversation go this long was a minor miracle. I could see his was running out. His face hardened. He shot up from the chair, the legs screeching against the linoleum, a sound that grated on my already raw nerves. "Fine," he bit out. "Whatever you want." Then he was gone. I lowered my head, closing my eyes against the sudden burn. I'd spent all of last night on my balcony, letting the cold air whip at me, debating what to do. Should I keep playing the fool, pretending I was just his friend while hiding this suffocating crush? Or was it time to let our lifelong connection finally fracture? They say you can't hide the way you look at someone you love. If I kept following him around, it wouldn't be fair to me and it wouldn't be fair to Chloe. No girlfriend on earth wants her boyfriend's overly close girl best friend hanging around. From that day on, Jax didn't speak to me. If we passed in the hall, his eyes slid right over me as if I were a stranger. The girl by his side was no longer me, it was Chloe. He introduced her to his entire circle of friends, the world that had once been ours. She was his first love. The girl he was crazy about. I focused on my studies. Like everyone else, I heard the stories of their epic romance through the grapevine. Chloe was starving herself for a dance competition, and Jax had his family's personal chef make her low-fat, high-protein meals to bring to school. A jock from a rival school wouldn't stop harassing Chloe, cornering her in an alley after school. Rumor was Jax beat him so badly he ended up in the hospital. On the next monthly exams, I reclaimed my spot as first in our class. My guidance counselor once told me to stop worrying so much about Jax, that he was dragging down my academic potential. The Kings had more money than God. It didn't matter if Jax graduated or not. That afternoon, I stared out the window at the spectacular sunset. Aubrey, where do you want to go for college? It was a hot evening last summer. Jax was sitting next to me, idly twirling a strand of my hair around his long finger. Northwood University, I'd said without hesitation. That's so far. He said. I never told him the real reason. It wasn't just because Northwood was a top-tier school. It was because I had to get away from here. Away from that house. My father was a cliché. The second he made money, he found a new woman. My mother refused to divorce him, convinced it was her fault for not giving him a son. In the dead of night, she would sometimes break down, pointing a shaking finger at me and screaming, asking why I couldn't have been a boy. Then her husband would have stayed faithful. He finally did have a son. My father's return to the family was brief. And once my little brother was born, my mother poured every ounce of herself into him. She had her son now, her security for old age. Oh, then I'll go to Northwood too, the boy beside me had boasted. You're such a klutz, you'll be a mess without me there to look out for you. That cocky, grinning boy was the only light in my broken world. I was desperate to hold on to him. I was willing to waste all my time on him, to sacrifice my own ambitions. Even if I didn't get into Northwood, as long as I got into whatever school he did, that would be enough. A rumor started spreading that Chloe was a homewrecker who had stolen Jax from me. Coming back from the restroom with Maya, I saw Chloe run past me down the stairs, her face buried in her hands, sobbing. A second later, Jax came storming up the steps. He saw me and his face contorted with rage. He lunged forward and slammed me against the wall, his hand closing around my throat. I thought you wanted to stay away from me, Aubrey, he snarled, his face inches from mine. What the hell is this? I clawed at his hand, my lungs burning. Maya rushed forward, trying to push him off. Are you insane? We were just in the bathroom. Let her go, you're choking her. Jax flinched back as if he'd been burned, snatching his hand away. I slid down the wall, gasping, sucking in ragged breaths of air. You're pathetic, Aubrey, he spat down at me. Aubrey, are you okay? I stayed crouched on the floor, coughing, tears streaming down my face. Maya wrapped an arm around me, rubbing my back. It's okay, Aubrey. I don't know what's wrong with him and his crazy girlfriend. I wiped my eyes, biting my lip to keep from sobbing aloud. The look on his face, it was pure hatred. For a second I thought he was actually going to kill me. The boy I knew was gone. Completely and utterly gone. Later, a classmate cautiously slid a phone under my desk. Someone had posted an anonymous message on the Crestwood Confessions page, accusing Chloe of being the other woman who broke up Jax and me. Everyone believed it. The comment section was a cesspool of slut-shaming, each insult more vicious than the last. When I got home that evening, I planned to immediately send a message to the page administrator to clear Chloe's name. The red marks on my neck were already bruising. But I never got the chance. I walked into my house to find my parents sitting on the living room sofa, their faces like thunder. They were waiting for me. My stomach dropped. I knew this wasn't good. A glass flew past my head and shattered against the wall behind me. What did you do to piss off Jackson King? My father roared, slamming his fist on the coffee table. Do you have any idea how much of our business depends on the Kings? Are you trying to ruin me? I just stood there as my mother's shrill voice joined in, calling me a useless, money-draining curse. My father told me I was going to go over there and apologize to Jax. Right now. The house was cold, but I was shivering from a chill that came from deep inside. I don't remember how the screaming match ended, only that I was bundled out the door and marched to the king's front porch. I had a speech prepared. I was going to tell him I didn't write the post, but that I would get it taken down. But the door swung open and he was standing there looking down at me from the top of the steps, his eyes like chips of ice. The words died in my throat. I lowered my head. I bowed. And I apologized. He just stared at me blankly, leaning against the doorframe. I don't want to see you at school anymore, Aubrey. My parents fawned over him, nodding and scraping, promising him I would never bother him again. I mechanically lifted my head. Under the stark, cold light of the porch lamp, I couldn't quite make out his expression. I couldn't quite see his face at all. In that moment, whatever pride I had left was ground into the dirt. It hit me then. We were never from the same world. We were never equals. The moon doesn't lower itself from the sky just because you wish for it. The reflection of the moon in a well is just an illusion. All the kindness he'd shown me over the years. It was just a rich boy's passing whim. I never should have let myself dream of anything more. It was a mistake from the very beginning. That night I started packing. My parents were already on the phone arranging my transfer. It had been almost 2 weeks since I transferred. I'd rented a small room near the new school. My parents, terrified I might run into Jax again, told me it was better if I just didn't come home. Crestwood High was on the east side, my new school Westwood on the west. In a city this big you wouldn't see someone unless you were trying to. Hey Hale. You should come watch my basketball game today. The boy speaking had on a black and white jersey, a cocky smile playing on his lips and clever fox-like eyes. On my first day a girl in my class had given me the rundown. That's Caleb Hayes. He's as famous for being a player as he is for being handsome. The other students in the classroom pretended to be busy, but I could feel their eyes on us. I'd lost count of how many times Caleb had approached me over the past 2 weeks. I heard the whispers. It was the first time he'd ever pursued a girl for this long. Teenagers are always hungry for a real-life romance novel, and they were ready to cast Caleb as the reformed rake. But a reformed rake is still a rake. I shook my head gently. I can't. I have too much homework. He glanced at the practice tests on my desk and raised an eyebrow. You know I've been trying to get you to go out with me for 2 weeks, right? And I shrugged. He let out a short laugh. And I'm just wondering why you keep saying no. The classroom had mostly emptied out. Outside, the sunset was beginning, painting half the sky in brilliant orange. I was suddenly reminded of something I'd read once. The evening breeze is free, the sunset is free, and I am one of a kind. You know, Aubrey, Caleb said, his voice softer now, you've got this weird contradiction going on. A whistle blew from the gym, a sharp sound cutting through the quiet afternoon. I looked at him. He smirked. It's like you've got this deadness inside you, but at the same time this crazy, intense will to survive. And that, he finished, makes me even more interested. I gave him a cool look. Your game is starting, I reminded him. It's against Crestwood High today, he said, his voice low, letting the name hang in the air between us. It went unnoticed. I looked back down at my book. He seemed to find my lack of reaction boring, letting out a tisk before turning to leave. After he was gone, I looked up at the silent clock on the wall. That confession post. I had a pretty good idea of who actually wrote it. But I couldn't figure out what they stood to gain. Unlike Crestwood, Westwood High cut the power to the classrooms at 6:30 sharp. The lights flickered off, leaving the room illuminated only by the fading glow of the sunset. I packed my books and headed downstairs. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the magnolia trees lining the path, scattering a few late blossoms across the pavement. I stopped for a moment just watching them. My short life felt a lot like one of those petals. Powerless. Helpless. Swept along by forces I couldn't control. Hey, isn't that Aubrey Hale? The voice snapped me out of my thoughts. I started to walk away, but they cut me off. 2 familiar faces looking shocked to see me here. They were Jax's friends, guys I'd known for years, guys I'd always gotten along with. They were holding sports drinks, clearly just coming from the convenience store. Aubrey? You really transferred here? I just nodded, not understanding the surprise in his tone. The other one nudged his friend. Listen, Aubrey, you and Jax have been friends forever. He's here for the game today. This is a perfect chance for you guys to talk and clear up this whole misunderstanding. Everyone who knew me knew I wasn't capable of doing something so cruel. But the one person who should have known it best, the boy who grew up with me, had decided I was guilty. There's nothing to. Before I could finish, a cold voice cut through the air from across the lawn. Does it really take you this long to buy a bottle of water? Or are you just standing around talking to irrelevant people? Jax was standing under a tree, his features cast in shadow, his eyes sweeping over me as if I were a complete stranger. His friends looked instantly awkward. I forced a smile. I should go. Bye. Yeah. Bye, Aubrey. Life at Westwood was quiet. Time seemed to move more slowly. Sometimes I'd get stuck in a loop, wondering why it felt like no one in the world loved me. I was a good student. My name was always on the honor roll. When I was little, my mother told me that everyone loves a child who gets good grades. I grew up to learn that teachers love students with good grades. My parents did not. I buried myself in my books, waiting for the next exam, waiting for graduation. I stopped waiting for anyone. My grades shot up. I placed first in the district-wide scholastic competition. Standing on the podium, the hot summer wind whipping my hair across my face and puffing up my school uniform, I looked out at the sea of students in their blue and white uniforms. I saw envy in their eyes and respect. The principal was at the microphone, showering me with every superlative he could think of. The ivy crawled higher up the brick walls of the school. The buzz of the cicadas grew louder, the sunsets burned redder. In the hallway, the murmur of recitation grew more frantic. Everyone was trying to find a way to slow down time. I never saw Jax again. Felt like I'd lost contact with that whole part of my life. They weren't my friends, not really. They were Jax's friends. When summer break started, I didn't go home. Our house was too close to the king's estate. Ever since I'd transferred, the only thing my parents said to me was, "Don't let Jax see you. If you run into him, you turn and you walk the other way." I was 17. I would be a senior next year. It never occurred to my parents to ask if I was anxious about my final year of high school, if I was okay at all. Under the hazy yellow glow of a streetlight, I sat on a park bench, reciting English verb conjugations to myself. It was okay. Every formula I memorized, every word I defined, every practice problem I solved, they were all forging a path for me. They would get me out of here. They would carry me toward a brighter future. People walked past me, a steady stream of strangers. No one stops for anyone else. Coming out of the library one afternoon, my phone rang. I answered it. Silence. I frowned, looking at the screen. An unknown number. "Hello," I said tentatively. Still nothing. I hung up without a second thought. "Aubrey." Caleb Hayes was waving at me from across the street, jogging over from the gym. "Going to get dinner?" I clutched my books. I could see his friends behind him, playfully shoving each other and trying to look like they weren't waiting for him. "I was just going to get takeout," I said. "You should go with your friends." "Come on, you can't live on takeout. It's unhealthy. I'm taking you out for a real meal." Before I could protest, he grabbed my arm and started walking. He led me to a French restaurant downtown. The kind of place where men wore suits and women wore cocktail dresses. I looked down at my own outfit, a baggy white t-shirt and denim shorts. Caleb was still in his red and white basketball uniform. We stuck out like sore thumbs. "Are you sure about this?" I whispered, pulling back. "We can't go in dressed like this." He blinked at me, genuinely confused. "It's just a place to eat, isn't it?" He said it with such confidence that for a second it almost made sense. Before I could argue further, a waiter approached us, taking in our attire with a polite, unwavering smile. "A table for two?" "Yep," Caleb nodded. "Very good. Right this way." He led us through the restaurant to a table by a large, dark window. "Would you care for a view of the city?" he asked. Caleb gestured to me with a tilt of his head. I glanced at my watch. It was just after 6. The sun should be setting. I gave a small nod. The waiter smiled. "Of course." He pressed a discreet button on the wall, and what I had thought was a tinted window turned out to be a screen. It retracted silently, revealing a breathtaking panoramic view of the sunset over the city. I think my jaw actually dropped. It was magical. When I looked again, the waiter was gone. Caleb slid a heavy menu across the table. "What looks good?" The prices were astronomical. I hesitated. He grinned. "Worried you're going to bankrupt me?" His face was bathed in the golden light of the setting sun, making his eyes sparkle. "Everything's kind of expensive," I admitted. "Don't worry about it. I can cover it. Order whatever you want. I pushed the menu back to him. You pick. I'm not picky. He took it, a teasing glint in his eye. Good to know. Easy to please. He looked up. How do you like your steak? Not bloody. He considered this. It gets tough if it's too well done. How about medium well? Is that okay? That's fine. After he ordered, I leaned forward. You know what I feel like right now? He took a sip of water, the corner of his mouth twitching up. What? A hick who just fell off a turnip truck. He laughed, a genuine, uninhibited sound. When Caleb laughed, 2 faint dimples appeared beside his mouth. He looked bright and warm. Looking at him, I suddenly thought of Jax. I hadn't thought about him in a long time. He had a dimple too, just one. He rarely smiled, not really. Usually it was just a faint curve of his lips. I used to poke the spot on his. You should smile more, I'd tell him. You look handsome when you smile. After Chloe transferred, he started smiling all the time. Sweet, adoring smiles. Looking back, I realized the universal truth of it all. It wasn't that he didn't smile. He just didn't smile for me. We ate as the sunset reached its peak, and by the time we finished, the sky was dark. The public square outside the restaurant was bustling with people. I had a really good time today, Aubrey, Caleb said as we walked out. I looked up at him. He was looking down at me, a soft smile on his face. It's my birthday today. What? I stared at him, horrified. It's your birthday? Then I should have paid. Why didn't you tell me sooner? He sighed, putting on a pitiful expression. I was afraid if I told you, you wouldn't have come. Of course I would have, I insisted. My mind started racing, trying to think of a gift I could get him on short notice. Suddenly, I felt his warm breath on my cheek. He had leaned in close, his voice a low murmur. Thinking about what to get me? He had bleached his hair blonde a few days ago, an act that had gotten his picture put up on the school's disciplinary board. The wind ruffled it, making him look like a golden retriever. I want that little pouch you have, he said. He meant the sachet. He'd come to find me after school one day, and as I was packing my bag, a small hand-stitched sachet filled with lavender had fallen out. He'd picked it up, shaking it gently. Can I have it, Aubrey? Please. I'd said no. Because that sachet was supposed to be Jax's birthday present. I had embroidered a tiny, intricate pattern on it with my own hands. It would never be his now, but it didn't feel right to give it to Caleb. It felt like offering him something someone else had rejected. I nodded firmly. Hey, I said. But you'll have to wait a few days. I'll make you a new one. On the walk back to my apartment, Caleb asked me for the first time, where do you want to go to college, Aubrey? I tipped my head back, looking at the sparse scattering of stars. Northwood University. Why? Because, I hesitated. Because I don't like it here. It never snows. I want to see snow. Caleb was quiet for a moment, just nodding. We reached the front of my building. Well, I'll see you, he said. Bye. I walked a few steps, then turned back. He was standing in the shadows, the faint smile still on his lips, but his eyes looked dark and sad. Something in my chest clenched. I raised my hand and waved. Caleb. Happy birthday. He looked up and a real smile broke across his face. He waved back. You're gonna get into Northwood, Aubrey. I know it. I thought Caleb and I had time. But still, I found myself rushing to finish the sachet, wanting to give it to him in person. I didn't know if he'd like the smell of lavender, so I bought some other dried flowers just in case. I made 3 small pouches for him. One shaped like a traditional good luck charm, one with a red embroidered lion and one with a blue dragon. I strung them together on a single cord. Holding them up in the sunlight, I wondered what his reaction would be. I got off the bus and practically ran to his apartment complex. But when I got there, there were movers carrying furniture out of his unit. I froze, my heart sinking into my shoes. I walked slowly toward a woman directing the movers from the sidewalk. Excuse me, I said softly. Do you know what happened to the person who lived here? Oh, him. He moved out. I think he left a few days ago. Oh. Okay. I nodded numbly and turned away. I found a bench and sat there for a long time trying to process the fact that Caleb was gone. Why would he leave without saying a word? Weren't we friends? My vision blurred. The gift bag in my hand suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Why is it that as soon as I start getting used to someone, they leave? just like everyone else. I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand, my expression hardening. I stood up, dropped the gift bag into a nearby trash can and walked away. That night a storm rolled in. I stared out the window at the rain, Caleb's contact open on my phone. My thumb hovered over the call button, but I couldn't bring myself to press it. What would I even say? Why did you leave without telling me? Maybe, to him, I was just a temporary challenge. A girl he pursued for a little while. Not someone worth saying goodbye to. I felt like a complete fool. How many times could I fall for the same trick before I learned my lesson? A sharp knock on the door startled me. I opened it and there he was. Jackson King, soaked to the bone, looking like a wreck. He stared at me, his face a mask of misery. Did you forget? He asked, his voice raw. Did you forget it was my birthday? If this had been the old Aubrey, would she have forgiven him? I don't know. All I knew was that the Aubrey standing there now felt nothing. I looked at the boy I had loved for most of my life, and I felt a profound, desolate emptiness. No love. No hate. Just nothing. His eyes were red-rimmed. Aubrey, it's my birthday. You promised you'd always be there for my birthday. I was so tired. Happy birthday, I said. Is that what you wanted to hear? I'm sorry, Aubrey. Are you still angry with me? He suddenly grabbed my hand and slapped it across his own face hard. I winced. The force of it sent a stinging vibration up my arm. He tried to do it again, to hit his other cheek with my hand, but I wrenched it away, my voice cold. If you're going to have a meltdown, go home. Don't do it on my doorstep. A dark red handprint was already blooming on his pale skin. I didn't care if it hurt him. I only cared that it might bring me more trouble. His mouth opened and closed. Rain dripped from his hair. Aubrey, I was wrong, he choked out. I don't even know why I acted like that. By the time I wanted to fix it, you were already gone. I went to Westwood to find you, but I saw you talking to that guy by the window and I got so angry. The things I said that day, I didn't mean them. It doesn't matter anymore, I sighed, a wave of exhaustion washing over me. Jack stared at me, his face pale and stricken. I let out a bitter little laugh. The post on the confessions page. With your family's resources, you could have found out who wrote it in an hour if you'd wanted to. At my words, a look of anguish crossed his face and he lowered his head. You and I grew up together, Jax. You know my personality. You know I would never do something that low. You didn't not believe me, Jax. You chose to believe it was me. Chloe wanted everyone to know she was your girlfriend. She wanted to draw a line in the sand between us, to prove that she, the new girl, was more important than me, the girl you'd known your whole life. And you let her. You went along with her lies and her games. I looked at his pained expression without a flicker of sympathy. You made your choice a long time ago. What are you doing here now? Aubrey, I'm sorry, he pleaded, reaching for me. I stepped back. I was wrong, I was so wrong. I didn't know what I was doing. It wasn't until you were gone that I realized. I can't live without you. I miss you so much. Every single day I thought about you. Went to your school, I waited outside, but I could never find you. I could never see you, Aubrey. Tears streamed down his face, mixing with the rain. He kept apologizing over and over. I looked down, closing my eyes. The boy who had walked me through so much of my childhood had finally, irrevocably, become someone I despised. The old Jax would never have treated me like this. The boy who used to hold his jacket over my head in the rain, puffing out his chest and saying, "Don't worry, Aubrey, I'm here," was gone. Lost to time. Jax. A tearful cry came from the street. It was Chloe. He didn't even turn his head. She ran closer, her voice pleading. Aubrey, he's all I have. Please don't take him from me. I'm begging you. She was a dancer, always dieting. Her face was pale and delicate, the kind that looked especially pitiful when she cried. Shut up, Jax roared at her. I told you we're done. Get lost. What did I do wrong? Just tell me. I love you so much, I don't want to break up. I had no interest in watching their drama unfold. I quietly shut the door. I didn't want to know about their love story, and I certainly didn't want to be a part of it. September came and I started my senior year. My homeroom teacher was right. Nothing was more important than my exams now. The only thing I cared about was getting into Northwood University. Later, Maya sent me a link to a gossip site. Chloe's prestigious dance competition wins were all fake. Her parents had bribed the judges. She'd even tried to buy her way through her college arts admissions. Every student who auditions for those programs suffers for their art. They practice until they bleed, they wipe away their tears and keep going, they sweat through their clothes and push through the pain. To see someone cheat their way in, the outrage was swift and brutal. Chloe had gained a small online following because of her pure and innocent looks. As the story blew up, her admissions offers were rescinded. Her reputation was destroyed. With nothing left, she clung to Jax relentlessly. He was so fed up with her that his parents finally transferred him to a boarding school where she couldn't find him. The same gossip sites that had obsessed over their perfect romance were now reveling in their downfall. I read it all like a detached observer, then went back to studying. The countdown calendar on the classroom wall got thinner and thinner. My classmates and I were all desperate for more time, cramming facts, trying to master one more concept before the next exam. I saw Jack sometimes standing across the street from my school. He would just stand there for a while watching and then leave. In June, after the cicadas had finally fallen silent, the final exams arrived. It rained hard that day. I remember the math exam was brutal. By the fifth multiple-choice question, my heart was sinking, my palms were sweating, and I could feel a cold dread creeping in. When I walked out of the exam hall, I was sure I had failed. The stairwells were filled with the sounds of students complaining. Some were openly crying. That was impossible. I'm so screwed. But time doesn't stop for anyone, and the exams don't get easier just because you cry. The last test was biology. I checked my answers one last time, making sure I hadn't missed anything. I put the cap back on my pen. Outside the window, the campus was a lush, vibrant green. The classroom was silent. The proctor announced there were 5 minutes remaining. My high school career, my youth, it was all about to end. Walking out of the building for the last time, I looked back at Westwood High, a school I had only attended for a year and a half, and felt a wave of emotion. I smiled and gave a small wave. Goodbye, Westwood. Goodbye to being 18. No one stays 18 forever, but there are always people who are. After graduation, I didn't go home. I went with Maya to the coast for the summer to work at a resort. Almost every other day I'd get a call from a number back home. I always declined it. People who get lost don't get lost because no one was holding their hand. They get lost because they were distracted by something prettier. The day the exam scores were released, my results weren't posted online. They had been flagged. A moment later, I got a text from the State Board of Education. I read it and a sob escaped my lips. I clapped a hand over my mouth, my whole body shaking. I was first in the state. My score was 713. All the work, all the sacrifices, it had all been worth it. Every step I took had counted. After my score was announced, my parents suddenly started calling again. I watched them on the local news, beaming, bragging to reporters about their brilliant parenting strategies and how they had raised a state champion. Maya stood beside me, hands on her hips, fuming. They have some nerve. Have they ever done a single thing for you? I just stared silently at the television. Eventually, a reporter found me. I kept a calm, pleasant smile on my face as I told my story. A cheating father, a mother who favored my brother, a broken home, and a girl who refused to give up. In the age of social media, my interview went viral. People expressed their sympathy, but more than that, their admiration for my strength. After that, I got a new phone number. With the university's full scholarship and the academic awards I'd won, I had more than enough money to cover my living expenses for the next 4 years. On the second morning of orientation week, we had the opening ceremony for freshman military training. My new roommates and I were running late, rushing to the main field. It was a sea of people and we couldn't find our assigned class section. I was standing there, completely lost, when a clear, masculine voice spoke from behind me. "Excuse me." I froze. I knew that voice. I turned and he was there. The memory made real. He was standing against the morning sun, his head tilted slightly down toward me. "Long time no see," Caleb Hayes said. That afternoon, I dragged my roommates to the dining hall the second we were dismissed. That evening, Caleb cornered me outside my dorm. He looked at my roommates who were all trying to pretend they weren't watching. "Can I borrow her for a minute? Please." I tried to ignore him and follow them inside, but he caught my hand. Even a guy on death row gets a chance to explain himself. "Please, Aubrey?" he asked. I scowled and walked with him to a more private spot. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I didn't mean to just disappear like that." He explained that his family was actually from Northwood, that he'd had a huge fight with them and had run away to Crestwood to finish high school. The reason I left so suddenly, my grandmother got sick. Really sick. She's the only one in that house who was ever kind to me. He looked down, his expression pained. I know it sounds like a bad soap opera plot, but my phone was stolen right after I got back. I was so busy taking care of my grandmother, and by the time I got a new one, you'd already blocked my old number. I came back to Crestwood once, he continued, but it was already senior year. I was afraid if you saw me, it would just mess with your head, so I stayed away. I'm not lying, Aubrey, I swear. Every word is the truth. Girls walking back to the dorm kept glancing over at us, their eyes flicking from his handsome face to mine before quickly looking away. I stared at our shadows on the pavement, 1,000 thoughts swirling in my head. Finally, I just nodded. Hey, I understand. What was I supposed to feel? Anger? That had faded months ago. Happiness? Not really. All I wanted was to get away. If that's all, I should go. As I turned to leave, he suddenly wrapped his arms around me, holding me tight. I like you, Aubrey Hale, he mumbled into my hair. And it's not some player trying to reform. I'm not dirty. I've never had a girlfriend. There was a girl who pursued me for a long time and I turned her down. The rumors about me changing girlfriends like I change my clothes? She made all of that up. The warmth of his hands seeped through my shirt. I heard his voice again, muffled and close to my ear. Will you be my girlfriend? I didn't answer. I just pulled away and fled. After orientation, our lives diverged. Caleb was in the computer science department on the East Campus. I was in the law school on the West. He was good looking, and from the first week of school his face was all over the university's confessions page. Eventually someone posted at Irie1 crushing on Caleb Hayes from CS. Give it up. I'm in the law school and I have a class with his girlfriend. He literally comes and sits in on her lectures whenever he has a spare minute. It's sickeningly sweet. Let's all just move on, okay? The attached photo was of me sitting by the window with a stony expression, while Caleb sat beside me looking like a kicked puppy. The truth was, I had just told him he needed to stop skipping his own classes to come to mine. But the story that circulated was that Caleb Hayes was a completely devoted, whipped boyfriend. Jax had also applied to schools in Northwood, but his scores weren't high enough to get into any of the good ones. On Christmas Day, I was heading out of the main gate when I realized I'd left my phone in my dorm. After I ran back and got it, I saw him waiting there. Jackson King. His eyes lit up when he saw me. Aubrey. I finally found you. I frowned and tried to walk past him. He was wearing the down jacket and scarf I'd given him for his birthday years ago. Aubrey, he said, his voice desperate. It's Chris. Maze. Let's get dinner together. Asking another man's girlfriend out to dinner? A cool voice cut in. Caleb appeared, stepping between us. Shouldn't you ask me first? Jax's hands clenched into fists, the color draining from his face. Aubrey, is it true? It's true, I said, my voice steady. I have a boyfriend. Please don't come looking for me again. He started shaking his head, a wild look in his eyes. How could you have a boyfriend? You said you were going to marry me when we were kids. He looked down, his voice breaking. I'm the one who lost you, Aubrey. Caleb stepped forward and grabbed the front of his jacket. That's right. And you should thank your lucky stars for your terrible judgment. Now get lost. He shoved Jax back. Jax stumbled, looking utterly defeated, and sank onto a nearby bench. Caleb took my hand and led me away. As we walked, I heard a faint, broken whisper behind us. Aubrey. I'm sorry. My family's business had always been dependent on the Kings. Not long after that Christmas, my parents showed up in Northwood. They begged me to get back together with Jax. I stared at them in disbelief. What kind of parents could say something so heartless? My eyes burned with tears. If you don't love me, I screamed at them, why did you even have me? My mother jabbed a finger at my forehead, her voice a shrill shriek. Because that quack doctor told me you were going to be a boy. Otherwise, you never would have been born. The world went silent. A roaring filled my ears as I stumbled backward. They looked like vultures ready to tear me apart. Just then Caleb ran up, pulling me into his arms and covering my ears. Don't listen to them, he murmured. It's all bullshit. In the end, my father's company went bankrupt. Jax had been waiting for me to come crawling to him for help. He didn't realize I had one last gift for him. Chloe Reed had spent the last few years trying to find Jax. The next time he texted me telling me he was at a hotel downtown and giving me the room number, I forwarded the message to her. It was time for the once happy couple to have their reunion. The next day, a very pregnant Chloe Reed was causing a scene in the lobby of the King Corporation headquarters, demanding that Jax take responsibility or she would accuse him of rape. The funny thing was, Chloe had another man on the side, an obsessive admirer who had been funding her lifestyle for years. When that man found out what had happened, he found Jax and stabbed him, leaving him critically injured and costing him his spleen. As for Chloe, her admirer beat her so badly she ended up in a permanent vegetative state. The story was a sensation both locally and online. I told myself I would walk toward a bright and promising future. I'd leave them to rot in the mud where they belonged. Aubrey Hale, you promised me a sachet. It's been ages. Where is it? Caleb was pestering me about it again. After everything that had happened, I hadn't wanted to make one, but he never let it go. I sighed and pulled a small embroidered good luck charm from my bag. Here. His face lit up like a little kid who'd just been given candy. He was ridiculously happy. Years later, I would write the final sentence in the acknowledgments of my first book. And to my husband, whose arrival was the salvation of my life.